All right, guys, welcome to the second episode of our podcast. I am your co-host, Daniel, and sitting in front of me is the co-host, Mitchell.
How's it
And,
going?
today we're going to talk about our trip to China in 2015,
That's right.
correct? Yep.
Yep.
And we'll just kind of divide into three portions where we talk about, obviously, the decision part and the process of going to China. And then secondly, we'll talk about the trip itself. And then third, we'll talk about kind of the different things we learned from that trip that applies to Mitchell and I. So let's get started, man.
All right.
Where should we start? Let's start with, when did you decide that you want to go to China?
I think I don't know. I think at one point what was it? We were what grade were we in?
In 2015, we've been friends for 2 years. So, because
Okay.
that was
So it
the
was
summer
between freshman and sophomore year.
that's
I think,
ninth grade and 10th grade in high school.
right. So I think it was like at one point in freshman year, towards the end, I think you maybe mentioned the possibility. I know your dad kind of did your dad kind of throw the idea out there of like having me stay at your guys' place?
Yeah.
Because he knew kind of that like I was interested in like China and Chinese culture and stuff like that, and I think he kind of and I mean that was the last thing I was kind of thinking to do, but even like freshman year, like I don't know, we're still kids, like we're still young, like the last thing I think, and I'd never flown by myself either, so that was kind of daunting. I was kind of freaked out to do that, and I've never really been to another country that didn't speak English before that. So I was kind of like, nah, like probably not. And then I don't know. I think we just started talking about it more. And then I looked at like the flight costs and stuff and realized that maybe it's not so impossible, and maybe that's something I could do. And so I think I like asked my parents. I was like, yeah, so Daniel's dad invited me to China. What do you think? And they were like, hell no. Because my mom didn't like the idea of it, and because she worries. And so and then I think I just told my dad, uh that was like before it was even like realistic, whatever. I was just like toying with the idea, and then I think I just told my dad like I'm gonna go. And it's interesting how when like I don't know, when you're like a kid or whatever, or like kind of like a teenager or young adult growing up, like if you ask for permission from your parents, at least in my experience, you're almost less likely to be allowed to do something. Like, but I found that if you just tell your parents, this is what I'm doing, in my experience, I don't know if anybody else's experience, but in my experience, it's worked out better. Uh, yeah, yeah.
I mean, I think, to your parents' defense, that was the summer between ninth grade and 10th grade. So I think, if I remember correctly, they still haven't met my parents formally, I believe. Well,
No, I don't think so.
they met my mom and my grandma.
Did they?
8th grade graduation. Yeah.
Oh, that's because your
Yeah.
grandma came.
Because I mean, I think after that eighth grade year, like throughout the eighth grade year, it was pretty like established that we were really good friends.
Right.
Because I remember me just not going to play basketball game, like not going to a road basketball game after
Yeah.
like the whole like banquet homecoming thing, right? Where I was like, oh yeah, I'm not bothered. So
What
we
do you
just
mean?
like, I remember one time I didn't even just go to the game because we planned to like play video games or something at your house,
Oh, because you were on the
right?
basketball team
Yeah, I was on the
and you were
basketball
like
team.
you ditched.
Yeah. And then some of the parents were actually really nice. We're like, oh, we can go take you home, get your uniform, and then we can go. But I'm just like, yeah, nah, no,
Right.
thank you. Right. Yeah. So I think to your parents, their friends, they didn't necessarily know our family that
Yeah.
well. So
Yeah.
for them to be able to let you go, it is a huge step. Right.
I think also one of the things that helped is that both of my parents had already been to China once, not for very long. My dad went for work related
Mm-hmm.
reasons, for like a conference and for like a week, and then my mom went for like a week because one of her cousins lives there and was getting married, and so that's so they had a little bit of an idea of like what I was gonna encounter, so it wasn't a big deal, but uh yeah, I think just the idea of me like flying alone and just kind of doing that at how old, I don't know, like
16.
16,
Yeah.
16. um that kind of freaked them out because I mean I
Yeah.
don't know, I don't know how that's super common for at least American kids at that age to fly across the globe, um you know like that. you know um
I mean, uh, yeah. So after you were able to, I guess, convince them per se,
right.
what are some of the like logistic issues that you encountered? Say, for example, getting a visa, or I think my dad had to write a letter, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember exactly all the. It wasn't like you can't just hop on a plane and go to China. You have to. I mean, they may have changed since then, but um, at least a little bit. But back in 2015, I think I had to. I don't even know if I had a passport, so I had to get a passport, and then uh, uh, yeah, your dad had to write a letter basically saying where, like, and I submitted that to the Chinese embassy, I believe. A letter where I was going to be staying, who I was going to be with, how long I was going to be there, just generally, just you know, what the hell am I doing there?
Right. Yeah.
um, and then yeah, and then I did get a Chinese visa, which is still in my passport, and I think is still good um, till 2025. I think because it's good for 10 years. And yeah, I got it 2015, so I can still go to China. I think on that visa with that visa if I wanted to.
Hey, 2022, Tibet.
Maybe hike the freaking
Yeah.
Everest or something.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking more of Damascus, Israel,
Yeah.
Jerusalem. But yeah, we'll see. So I guess how's the flight there? How was the flight, and was it nerve wracking to fly and then expect people that, I guess, me well, but you didn't necessarily know my parents that well. So
Yeah.
to just go and start to live in someone else's house, like what was that whole process like?
Yeah, that was totally weird, totally new for me. Like I don't think even until that point I had really spent more than like a couple of days away from my house. Like and I think I was in China for like 10 days. And so it wasn't even that long. But I don't know. It was weird. Up until then, I just had never really gone on like trip like that where I was kind of on my own, at least for the first leg of the trip. But the flight was interesting. I had never taken a flight that long either. I can't remember. Not even. I'd never taken a flight even close to that long, so I didn't really know what to expect. Um, I can't remember exactly. How do you know how long the flight is from? I think you fly. Yeah. They drove me to Chicago actually, and I flew out of. My parents drove me to Chicago, and I flew out of Chicago. And it was direct flight to Beijing, so that's one of the longer
I
hauls.
think it
They
would
didn't
be
stop in Korea or anything.
that would probably be around 11 hours, 11, 13, or a
I think it
number
was like
like that.
13.
Yeah,
13 sounds about right.
yeah,
12, maybe, yeah, 11, 12,
yeah,
somewhere in that range,
yeah.
11 to 13. Um,
Because I
so definitely
mean,
not
you
the
get three
longest flight.
meals. You get 3 meals on it, right?
Yeah,
You
you
get
get
2 meal and a snack. So
Yeah, actually, that was
it
what
is a long
surprised me the
flight.
most was how much food. It was like they brought it like it's like I couldn't, you didn't even have time to sleep because it was like they're bringing out the next meal, and everybody on the plane eats the whole meal. Like it's like a big part of the trip, you know? It's like it's kind of like it keeps, I think honestly it's probably part of the entertainment just to keep your mind, you know, doing something. Because in like all the little, I don't know, it's just an experience, like cracking open all the little packaging
Yeah.
and you get to
Yogurt,
choose. Yeah, there's like
bread,
yogurt, uh just
granola bars.
just
Yeah,
random stuff really that's like in like it's these random brands that you've
yeah.
never heard of, and you're like, I will never see this brand in my life again except on this plane. um so that was interesting. And yeah, I think I took Hainan Airlines, which I don't even know if I'm sure they're still around.
Yeah.
That was one of the cheaper options for me. It's a Chinese airline, so um, getting on the plane, it was mostly Chinese people. I don't, and most of the um, you know uh, instructions was in Chinese first and then English second, which was interesting too. So I'm very used to being pandered to, or not pandered to, but spoiled with English always as the first thing that goes on the
Yeah.
intercom. You know what I mean? So that was an interesting experience too. I'm like, okay, uh, I'm leaving my home.
Right.
So yeah, that's how the flight went, kind of.
Yeah. I mean, I think it, when we talk about these, I guess, differences that you faced,
Yeah.
it's also important to then bring up the whole living situation that you were a part of, right? Because
What do you
you
mean?
you literally just came into a regular Chinese family's house, right?
Yeah.
And you lived the same way everyone else did, right? There was no dryer. That's not a thing. And every
Like I
every
live the
meal,
same way as everyone
right?
else does in kind of in
Yeah,
China.
you get a
Yeah.
chopsticks before your meal, right? You eat the same
Yeah.
stuff Chinese people eat. So I think that was probably really cool, right? To
Yeah. Like when I got there, well, yeah, I mean, yeah, I was just talking about the flight, but when I got off the flight, it was like boom, like it has like China and especially Beijing, it has a very strong feeling, it's like the road, everything just feels big, like the roads are huge, it's expansive, and like the roads, like, yeah, like I'm saying, like uh are like really wide with like I don't even know how many freaking lanes, probably 10 lanes of traffic in one direction it seems sometimes, and you see people, uh, switching like 5 lanes at once, which is kind of insane at like 90 miles an hour. But uh, you know, so kind of the drive from the airport to the, to your home was just an experience in itself. It was just like, and when I landed, it was like all kind of like hazy and like foggy, kind of, um, and it pretty much stayed that way for most of the 2015. I think Beijing was kind of had a decent amount of smog going on, I think.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
don't, has it
It's
gotten
only
better?
it's only recently where they start cutting down the amount of industrial like operations
Yeah,
around the I guess the region,
yeah.
because
Um,
it doesn't come from Beijing itself. It comes from its surrounding industrial provinces, right?
okay, yeah, yeah.
So
Um,
that was kind of the main issue there. It's a little better now with obviously COVID and everything else.
right,
So
right. And then getting to your house, you know, and I've seen pictures like on you know, like other people's WeChat and stuff, and it seems like, your house is very similar to a lot of just traditional Chinese homes, like how do I even describe it? It's like the um, tile floors, white, pearly kind of tile floors. And then correct me anywhere that I'm making a mistake, but it's and then pretty compact. No space is being wasted. Um, and then yeah, what else? What else is like
I mean, considering the size of
what else is like
the house, there was a projector. That
did
was
you guys have a
weird.
projector?
Yeah, remember we were watching Breaking Bad with my
Oh
dad,
yeah. You had a
it was,
TV, but then you pull
yeah,
down. Okay, yeah.
yeah, and then the first episode,
Oh yeah, we
yeah,
watched the first episode of Breaking
uh,
Bad in
uh,
China, which was fun. Um,
it was really awkward considering the type of scene that was in there.
yeah, I think the first episode of Breaking Bad might be one of the more uh, you know, um,
Sexually charged, I would say.
yeah, yeah, than the rest of the series.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the distinct things I remember was whenever like my grandma make something, like I feel like everyone almost wait at the table to see, does he like it, like, is this
Yeah,
okay?
that was
Yeah,
like a
yeah.
lot of pressure.
Right.
That was a lot of pressure for me.
Right.
Um, because I liked most of it. I
Yeah,
truly did like most of
yeah,
it because I'm not a super picky eater and I really do like to experience all type of food. But there was some things that I wasn't a big fan of.
yeah,
I think the powdered milk wasn't a big hit with me. I
yeah.
think there was like some powdered soy milk or something like that.
Oh,
It
just soy
was
milk in general,
well, because
like,
I typically just don't drink regular milk, and so
yeah.
I think you guys had some powdered soy milk or something like that.
I mean, I think to make a distinction, the soy milk that people drink in China is not the same as the westernized one.
Okay.
It got a very strong soy flavor to it.
Yeah.
So it does make sense that people don't like, because I don't like.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And
And
then
yeah, we did a lot of experience with food.
yeah, that's probably my
Yeah.
favorite part of most of our traveling experiences is the
All types
food.
of food. Yeah.
What else did your grandma made a lot of food.
Yeah.
And I think, I think I probably gained weight on the trip because I was eating a ridiculous amount. Like I'm
Yeah.
not, it wasn't even used to eating breakfast, but when your grandma
Yeah.
would, and sometimes I'd be at the table alone eating breakfast just because she
Yeah.
wanted to make sure that I was fed.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
I mean, yeah, another thing that came to my mind was not all Chinese homes are as clean as mine,
Okay.
because, well, obviously cleanliness comes from, like, obviously first of all come from the amount of space you have.
Hmm.
So whenever you walk into a Chinese family's home, it typically seems a little more dirty, just
Okay.
because the amount of stuff that's everywhere. Because obviously there's not that much space, and you're fitting.
Right.
It's an apartment with maybe 4 bedrooms,
Yeah.
2 bathrooms, and you're fitting, you're fitting like 4 people, 4 or 5 people in there, and their food, all their belongings. There's no like garage or anything like that.
Right.
So it
You
does
have to
tend
make
to,
use of all
yeah.
that space.
And also another reason was just with Chinese cooking,
Mm.
right? Everything's open fire, stir fry, a lot of oil, a lot of smoke, right? So that builds up year to year.
Yeah.
So I would say, yeah, my family, my grandma is probably one of the cleanest person I've ever seen in my life, right? Like,
Yeah.
considering the amount of stuff that Chinese people do, our house shouldn't be that clean. So that was something a little different than,
Yeah,
I
your house
guess.
was not dirty at all. It
Yeah,
was very
yeah.
clean. Uh,
So,
yeah.
and from my experience, obviously going to different Chinese people's house, growing up there, it's not always like mine, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So before we get into all the places we've gone to, let's get into all the stuff we ate.
Okay.
We ate a lot of different things. I think most of them I've had before, but some of them do still like kind of, they re-intrigued me because I
Yeah.
lived in the States for a while. So
Right.
when when I think about, like, say certain foods or certain way of preparation, it does still struck me a little bit. So
Yeah.
let's talk about it. So what was something that you really liked or really didn't like, or something just that was different?
I'm trying to remember. I mean, we can start with like in terms of food,
Yeah.
we can start with chicken feet.
Right.
Um, we ate that a lot. I mean, we ate that a decent amount. So we have a picture coming up here.
Yep. Yep.
But yeah,
Sorry.
I think I had tried it. I think I had tried chicken feet once
Yeah.
before because my dad had some Chinese colleagues that
Yep.
were at his university, and they cooked some for us. So I'd had it once before,
All right.
um, but yeah, we had it a decent amount of times in China, and I think I kind of I definitely gained an appreciation for them,
All right.
uh, uh for what they are. It's like that's just something that I think Americans really have a hard time, uh, you know, appreciating is that it's kind of this uh, quantity over quality over quantity type mentality, or quantity
Sure.
over
Fine.
quality. There you
Yeah.
go.
Finally.
Um, yeah. So as you can see on the left there, we're snacking on some chicken feet.
Yep.
Um, but and I mean they look. I mean, genuinely, most Americans would look at that and think that's absolutely disgusting.
Right.
And and there's not even that much meat on them.
Right.
It's
Right.
like, I mean, I'm taking a more critical stance right now because
Yeah.
I genuinely am passionate about people trying different food. Um, if they've never tried it before and
Right.
not, you know, totally rejecting the idea, but there's a lot more than just shoveling it into your mouth, because like with chicken feet,
Yeah.
it's almost like picking apart. It's like it's enjoyable. It's like
Right.
uh you're using your hands, it's, I don't know. It's hard. Maybe you can help me out. I'm having a hard
Yeah.
time
I
describing
mean, I
it, but
think obviously it derives from the fact that, you know, China used to be a poor country, or I guess a lot of different Asian countries have chicken feet as something, you
right.
know, very
Well, it's
casual
usually thrown
to
away,
eat. Right.
it's
It's
because there's not
usually
that
thrown
much
away.
meat on there.
Right. And obviously different areas have different, I guess, types of cooking. So like from what, like in this picture, what I see is this distinct, I guess, northern Chinese culture, right?
Okay.
That's like their food is very soy sauce based, right? You have
Mm-hmm.
your dark soy, light soy, you know, cooking alcohol, a few other things that's like ginger, that's like a base of a lot of dishes that we've had.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of my one of my knock on it. One of my knock on the Chinese food, or I guess the Chinese food that my grandma cooked or my parents grew up with, was
Mm-hmm.
that it's all too heavy and too soy sauce y for me, right?
Mm,
It's
yeah.
not. Whereas if you look at a lot of the Cantonese stuff from Hong Kong we've had, right?
Yeah.
Or just obviously now I eat Vietnamese food pretty regularly. Just how those food are so different from the food that I used to eat when I was growing up.
Yeah.
I think it also demonstrated how multicultural China is as a country, where even though it's one country, it's very, very different.
Absolutely.
And to the right of the picture, obviously we have our favorite pork
That
brain.
is pork brain.
Yeah, want to talk about that?
Yeah, that was probably the most experimental thing that I tried on our trip. Even though I tried a decent amount of experimental kind of things that I definitely never seen before, that was one where I was like, I don't know about this. I'm just gonna kind of just plug my nose and do it, just so I said that I did it.
Right.
And I mean, even you, this isn't a
Yeah.
normal dish,
No.
right?
No.
You
No.
don't order this like every day,
No.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, funny
When
enough,
you're in China.
yeah, funny enough, I did have it maybe 6, 7 months ago in Australia,
Okay.
In a Chinese hot pot restaurant where someone was really into pork brain, so they ordered it and I had to taste. You know, it's not
um,
tofu. Like people say it's tofu, it's not tofu. Like
no.
it's not tofu. It tastes like meat.
Yeah.
It
I
tastes
you don't eat it straight like this for reference. You put it into you put it into boiling water and
Yep.
it cooks it, and then it kind of turns into like a more grayish
Yep.
brown color. You don't see any of that blood
Yeah.
or anything. It's
Right.
not pink anymore. But I didn't like it at all. I thought it was kind of awful.
Right.
I
Yeah.
thought the texture was just like really gross,
Right.
and I felt like I was eating a human brain, and I just wasn't my thing.
Right.
That was
Right.
the one thing I can say I just didn't like when I was there. For the and I think alongside that we had like was it some type of fish? I don't remember what type of fish, but they brought the fish out to us
Yep.
in a bucket and asked us,
Yeah.
Is
Yep.
this good? Is
Yeah.
this one okay?"
Yeah.
And I've
Yeah.
never seen that before either. Maybe some restaurants,
Yeah.
like on the East Coast of the United States probably do
Yeah.
that, but I'd never seen that before where,
Right.
we got to see the fish alive,
Right.
which one we were going to be eating in about 20 minutes.
Alive kicking. Right. I think
Yeah,
the one we had was catfish, if I remember correctly.
I think it was catfish.
Yeah. Yeah. It was some
Um,
type of freshwater fish.
yeah, and keep in
But
mind, I was a vegetarian all the way up until I got on the plane to go to China, and it went completely out the window. And I'm actually
right.
surprised I didn't get sick just from the meat, but I really didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was for the most part pretty good on
Right.
food. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No. I think that's cool. Did you? I mean, you used chopsticks pretty well before you even came to China. I remember. So that was
Yeah, I
never
mean,
really an
decent.
issue,
I
was it?
wasn't like, yeah, but it was still kind of like chopsticks wouldn't even like, I'm just so used to using, spoon, fork, that like chopsticks, sometimes I use it for the novelty and like whatever, but sometimes when I was there, it was just like, God, it was like, just give me a fork, please. Like,
That's what I was thinking as well, actually. That's what I was thinking. I agree with you. I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
Even up to this day, where I can understand how you might feel like how when we used to use chopsticks back in the States or
Yeah.
whatever occasion it may be, it was
Yeah.
more of a gimmicky thing than anything
Yeah.
else. It was
You're at a
more,
Chinese restaurant. Let me use
yeah,
chopsticks. You know what I
right,
mean?
right,
So it's not, you don't use them because they're a better way to eat food,
yeah,
a more effective way. I mean,
yeah,
I mean, they have I think they do serve a purpose with some foods
yeah,
over a fork,
yeah,
Um, but by and large, I think a fork, you can eat it faster. I think so.
yeah, probably. Yeah, I would
You
agree.
had to put it to the test.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, as well as how Chinese people have every dish in the center of the table instead of
Right.
each getting
Yeah.
using the
But faster
fork.
doesn't mean better.
Right,
Faster
right.
doesn't mean better.
But it's just, I guess it's just different, it's just different.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so now we've talked about some of the food that we ate. Let's talk about some of the places where we went.
All right.
So I guess we went to a lot of different places. Some of the
Yeah.
more touristy places, and also some just more in-depth cultural stuff.
Yeah.
For example, I think one thing that comes to my mind is you coming. My dad had somewhere to go that day. It was you, me, and my Chinese friend that I had, that I still
Yeah.
talk to this day. That I
Yeah.
still talk to this day. Where three of us, we just went to the mall, right?
Yeah. We
Yeah,
went to the
we
mall a
ate.
lot
Yeah,
when we were there.
we just went to the mall and like hung out.
Yeah. I mean,
Right?
in terms of that, I mean, that's not so different from,
Yeah,
the kind of stuff that we did just when we
yeah,
were, back home and back here in the
yeah,
States, I mean, it's kind of like the hangout spot for young
yeah.
people is go
Right,
shopping, man. Just go buy
right.
clothes, buy,
Yeah,
so for that, that I felt, although the malls were nicer in China, I
yeah.
will say.
I don't know if you remember, but we almost went on like this scavenger hunt. I don't know if you
I don't
remember the
remember.
Uniqlo story.
I do remember that. I actually have
Yeah,
pictures, but
yeah. So
I didn't put it in our.
background of the story was that summer, like a video online blew up because it was pretty much a couple, doing their deeds in a
Yeah.
Uniqlo changing room,
Yeah.
and the location they always put it on their I guess Chinese Twitter per se, like I
Right.
think, yeah,
Yeah.
Weibo, I think, right?
Yeah. And
So
so it
we were
kind of
just,
blew up.
yeah.
Like, yeah.
So we wanted to, hop on the bandwagon, trying to find which room is it exactly.
Yeah.
So we went on like
Did they
this
like
trip.
close? Did they close the changing rooms for a while or
Yeah, I think
something? I
so.
think they
Yeah, something.
did.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
And it was like a weird 2015 Chinese internet phenomena that
yeah,
happened, and people were taking selfies outside of this particular
right.
Uniqlo, and it was
Yeah,
weird. It was just like, and I don't know if you want to talk about that in terms of like, do you think that reflects any type of like more like, I read some articles saying that like there is kind of like a sexual revolution going on in China with young people, where it's like it's becoming more open and not as traditionally conservative
yeah,
as it has been. So I don't know if you have
yeah.
any put on that.
I mean, from the limited knowledge I do have, I know like a lot of stuff that's popular on Instagram, say fitness on Instagram, or
Yeah.
like those Instagram girls that, just make money by showing off their backside, right? It's a lot of it goes on in China as well, right? At this point,
Yeah.
even though it's on a different platform,
Right.
it's not to the extent where people think, oh, you know, it's China. Everyone's probably super reserved. Everyone's probably in a long sleeve T-shirt all day, right?
Right.
So
Right.
it's not like that. Where same type of trend, I guess, that's popular in Australia or America. It's also popular in China, but just different, right?
Right. But what I'm trying to say is like and maybe I'm totally wrong on this, but I feel like if a video surfaced like that in like New York City at like a JC Penney or something, it probably wouldn't be as like notable or like
Right.
as like a phenomenon like than it or like as a meme than it was in China. And I feel like that might reflect some shift in like just perceptions of like sex and like
Yep.
I don't know. It's kind of
Oh no,
interesting that was even popular or like what I'm trying to say.
I agree. I mean, I think the best way I can try to explain it is that maybe they're just 10 years behind us on some of these stuff.
I see.
Maybe they're just 10 years behind us, right?
Right.
Maybe not by much, just by maybe 5 years. Where if in 2010, when Instagram first started, or when Facebook first launched, something like that happened where people will pay more attention to it in the States, right? But then that process, I think, just was delayed in China by maybe 5 to 10 years.
I see. Yeah, that makes sense.
So not necessarily people like different things. People have different culture, but just that culture haven't really, shifted into the Chinese, I guess, internet scene.
Right. I see.
But yeah, let's name some of the, I guess, more touristy place we went to. So we went to
I know we went to the Great Wall.
Yep.
We went to what was that? Is Summer Palace? Is that right?
Yep. So this is the Great Wall that we're looking at right now.
That's my all these pictures, by the way, were taken on my Galaxy S5 back in 2015. I have since upgraded and I only use iPhone, but
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, looking at this picture, it like worries me a little bit.
Why?
Just like in my mind, I'm just thinking, how can the Great Wall take this much people? Like, I don't think when they built it 2,000 years ago, it was meant for this many people to be on.
Yep. Yeah. I wonder if any engineers are like actually, keeping an eye on that.
Yeah, and I mean, this just makes me think a little bit. It's like, how those photos on like Pinterest or wherever that shows the Great Wall where it's just empty, or like where Instagram influencers take a picture of it where it's just
right. It's all zen. It's them by themselves.
Yeah, it's them by themselves, and like I remember seeing the quarterback of the Seattle Seahawks through football on the Great Wall, right? Play catch with, on the Great Wall. Yeah. And then in my mind, I'm just like, how did that happen? Because every time I went, and because Great Wall is very close to my house, actually.
Yeah.
It's maybe like an hour to an hour and a half away from where I live.
Right.
So, because I live in Beijing, so that's where the northern part of the Great Wall resides. So I'm just like, yeah, I don't know how those people got their picture to be so perfect. Every time I go, that's all we see, right?
Yeah, I think whatever they're doing is not reflective of what maybe during coronavirus you'd be able to go maybe
or a different part of the Great Wall, because obviously the thing is nice and long. So
right.
So maybe other less notable parts do.
Yeah, but if you go to Beijing and Great Wall, you're probably going to see this.
Yes. Yeah.
And I remember we went there and we kind of drove a kind of, I mean, it wasn't a super long drive, but maybe an hour.
Yeah.
And we got there and it was pretty freaking hot. And we went during the summer, so it was hot the whole
Yeah.
time I was there.
Yeah.
It gets really hot in Beijing during the summer. Um, but it was really hot. It was basically just touching people the whole time to get through. And I think we walked maybe up like one or two staircases, and then we
Yeah.
were like, we're done. Like, we've seen
Yeah.
what we need to see here. And
Yeah.
it's not that the Great Wall isn't freaking amazing and like beautiful. It's just that it's kind of ruins it when there's that many
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. For sure. For sure.
And that's everywhere. That's every tourist
Yeah.
spot in the world.
Yeah.
It's like when
Yeah.
there's too many people, it ruins the the experience sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we also went to the Forbidden Palace, right?
Yeah,
Forbidden City.
Forbidden City.
Forbidden City. Yeah. So that was, I guess, one of my favorite parts.
Hang on a minute, Daniel.
Yeah.
There we go. My chair was not working.
Right. Yeah. So that was that was pretty cool seeing, because the Forbidden City, I believe, have 9,999 different rooms in it.
Jeez.
Yeah. So that was kind of one of the calling cards, because nine, I guess in China, is like a lucky number. So when they built it,
Is there a reason for that? 9?
I don't know about that, but
Okay.
yeah, but I do know that was kind of the reason why they built it like that. But moving to that was pretty cool. And then obviously at the front of the Forbidden City, we have the photo of our guy Chairman Mao up there, right? At Tiananmen Square.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
That was really cool, wasn't it?
Yeah, Tiananmen Square is really cool. It's just like huge. And where else we went to? Also, Mao's like memorial, or like his embalmed body is there.
Yeah.
We saw that too, which is really interesting.
Yeah. Everyone had to have at least one yellow flower in order to go in.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm. You put the flower,
at the front, and you can't wear tank tops. You can't,
Yeah, there's kind of like a dress code.
Yeah.
Very, very respectful, very reverent, vibe going on in there.
It's not like the North Korea propaganda stuff you see on TV, where everyone every year when they see Kim Il Sung, they start crying.
It wasn't
past.
like that.
No, like everyone was just. I think
it's
most
just
people
respectful.
were there. Yeah, most people just went for the heck of it, right?
Right. Yeah. It was. Yeah.
But yeah, that was pretty cool, because there was a few different museums that we went to there. The military museum as well. They were all around the square, basically, where the Tiananmen Square was on one side, on the northern side, and the memorial and a few other. I remember there was a monument, right? There was a big monument, kind of like the Washington Monument.
Yeah,
that was around the square as well.
It kind of looked like it was kind of like, and was it an obelisk, or like the same shape? I can't remember if it was or if it was a different shape. But anyways.
I think it was it was more rectangular. It was closer to like a tomb type shape.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And there was like traditional Chinese writing on it. I remembered. I don't even know at this point what it remembered. Probably some hero that never existed.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the whole trip was, I guess, very interesting seeing your reaction to everything, right? Firsthand.
Yeah.
Right. That was
honestly,
really
at
cool.
that point, when I was like 16, I was a lot less interested in the like history and like, socio-political stuff. I really was more into the looking back, kind of the almost not that interesting stuff, like the more contemporary culture, like what people were wearing, the styles, the fashion, the um like tech stuff, and I was really fascinated that there was a decent amount of iPhones, around when we were there, but for the most part, it was Huawei. Am I
Yeah.
saying that right?
Yeah.
Huawei phones, and they were massive. I mean, and this was before like big phones hit the market in the United States. So I think China kind of led that revolution on the big screens. Some of them are like literal iPads. Maybe they've gotten smaller since then, but I mean, on the train and stuff,
Yeah.
like kind of ridiculous
Yeah.
sizes.
Yeah.
Um, but I was, yeah, like I said, I was kind of more interested in that. And looking back, I kind of wish that I you know uh focused more on
Yeah.
some of that more historical stuff while I was there.
I think you also brought up a really good point about comparing and contrasting
Hmm.
how my family was living to how all those visitors that came to Beijing, kind of like you, that are
Hmm.
from different parts of China,
Hmm.
how they were, right? Because I
Hmm.
remember there's this lady when we were up in the Great Wall that was speaking Sichuanese,
Mm.
which I can't understand, right?
Yeah.
Can't understand a word.
Yeah.
Where you were telling me how it just sounded like they're fighting,
Yeah,
right?
sometimes I mean I think I mean Chinese as a language
Yeah,
sometimes like I don't it's hard to tell what the like if you don't know any Chinese, it's hard to tell the mood. Like
yeah,
sometimes it just sounds like people are angry.
yeah,
Just because it's kind of a harsh. There's a lot of harsh
yeah,
tones, and it
yeah,
doesn't necessarily mean that they're angry at all. It's just like there's a lot of it's a very tonal language, so
yeah,
it's sometimes it's hard. It's not like English. You don't your tone, in English usually depicts how you're feeling or what you
right.
mean. Tone and Chinese is probably a lot more complex because
Yeah,
you're
I mean,
balancing a tone of the actual word plus your mood tone. I don't know how that
right.
works.
And each word have like each pronunciation have like 100 different words
Yeah.
that have
Like
a
give an
hundred different
example.
meanings. Like 1 second you can say mom, the next second
Yeah.
you can say horse.
With the same
Yeah. So
syllables or
like like mom is ma, right?
mm-hmm.
Whereas if you say horse, it's ma.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that big of a distinction,
Yeah.
right?
It's all the tone
Right.
that you use.
It's just yeah, different tones.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and getting back to what I was saying before was how I think I think you probably saw it as well, is how the distinction between people that were privileged enough to live in Beijing or live in big cities
Mm-hmm.
versus people that are lived in more suburban rural areas, where when they came to Beijing, I mean, I
Yeah.
think
There's a
you
big
can,
difference. You
yeah,
can
you can
tell.
relate. Yeah, like all those people on the Great Wall, or where all the matter of fact, all the travel like visitor places we went to, right?
Mm-hmm.
All those different sightseeing places we went to, was most people there are not, you know, like their life is distinctly different from the one that I am
Right.
accustomed to.
Because they're not from Beijing for the most part.
Right,
They're like touristy
right,
areas.
right. So like people from Beijing doesn't like people from Beijing like me wouldn't
Mm.
recognize that difference. Wouldn't recognize,
Yeah.
wait, not every Chinese person is living as comfortable as I am, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where
Yeah.
I can just go get milk tea or whenever I want and
Mm-hmm.
go have some pizza whenever I want, right? Because we
Yeah.
had plenty of westernized food as well when I was in China, when we were in China a
Yeah,
few
we had
times.
some pizza. It's pretty
Yeah.
good. It's
Yeah.
good pizza.
So it's like Yeah, so that's also a important distinction is even though our perception of China now is more modern, more, more of the same with us, right?
Mm-hmm.
That we're more similar, that there's still probably a large part of those areas where people are still less knowledgeable or, less
Just had less
cultured.
resources.
Yeah,
Yeah.
less cultured, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's interesting to see that.
Yeah, I would have loved
Yeah,
to have gone more places than just Beijing because
yeah,
it sounds like China's got a lot more than just Beijing. Um,
absolutely.
you know, and but the thing is, I was in Beijing for 10 days and I still feel like I didn't see hardly any of it because it's that big,
Yeah.
you
I'm
know.
just language wise, I can't understand Shanghainese, right? That's a like specific dialect, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I
And where
don't
is
understand.
Shanghai located? Remind
So
me,
it's more,
compared to Beijing.
it's further down south.
Okay.
So it's maybe like New York to Georgia, maybe that
Okay.
distance, something like
Okay.
that. Where, yes, where people sound completely different,
Hmm.
right? Whereas now, the more I think about how Mandarin becomes a thing, the more I'm just, I'm like, why is Mandarin even a thing? Because Mandarin is pretty much like Beijingese. That's that that have a little different tone.
Yeah.
That have less R sound,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's the proper Chinese per se. But
Right.
when but I just have difficulty seeing that there is a proper Chinese because different people from different area have completely different like dialects, right?
Mm-hmm.
We all sound different. That's what's cool about China, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Maybe in the future we'll talk about our trip to Hong Kong, but how they speak, the language is Cantonese there is completely different. And matter of fact, there's a province that's next to Hong Kong called Fujian, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's like a province that's maybe a little closer to like really close from Taiwan,
Mm-hmm.
where their dialect is completely different. And people from there's Mandarin sounds different.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was pretty cool. What's something else maybe you learned from that trip?
Um, I think definitely being in a different country that does not speak English for them. I mean, there's a lot of English speakers in China and Beijing, but for the most part, people are using Chinese day to
Yeah,
day. It's not like
yeah,
English is being spoken like as the main language. So uh, I did feel it was the first time I actually dealt with like, wow, like I feel very isolated right now because I really, in terms of people I can talk to in person, I really like normally just like um like I normally do, it was with you and that's it. So we were kind of I was like only being able to talk to one person for 10 days, normally without too much effort um was interesting and I've yeah, I felt very like by day 5 or 6 I'm like kind of missing home, and I think that
yeah,
added perspective a lot for like the international students at our high school who a lot of them when they first came you know didn't have that great English, and they just had to survive. And at least I had you, but a lot of the kids that come over, it's totally new, they don't know anybody.
yeah,
I can imagine
yeah,
that that's extremely difficult.
yeah. I mean, I feel like that's also one of the reasons why they tend to just fall into their own kind of bubble, right? And not come out
Right.
of it at school, where
Yeah.
we've seen a lot of that.
It's a lot
not,
more
yeah,
comfortable, and you know, and I understand
yeah,
that completely.
right. Yeah, it's a whole new, I guess, understanding of how we live, we act, and how that might be completely different somewhere else. Just
Mm-hmm.
makes us, I think, appreciate what we have more, but
Mm-hmm.
also make us acknowledge that, our way of life is not the only way, and that,
Mm-hmm.
these differences are important to recognize. So
I think I remember getting back to the when I f- when I flew back to we flew into I flew actually we actually flew back together because we were going
yeah,
the summer was over. It was towards
I
the end of the
think
summer.
yeah, I believe we flew from China, Beijing to either LA or Dallas. And then from Dallas, we transferred to Cincinnati
No, we
because
flew into Chicago.
oh, wait, but the flight
'Cause
was
we got
canceled.
stuck.
Yeah,
No, the flight from Chicago to Ohio was canceled. So we actually
right.
had to spend the night after our long haul flight in
Yeah,
this random room for like minors because we were under 18,
yeah,
and it was like the worst place to sleep
yeah,
ever. And it was freezing cold for some reason
yeah,
in
yeah,
the Chicago airport, and it was a bad night. It was terrible.
yeah. I
And
mean,
they wouldn't let us leave. They would not let us leave
yeah,
that room because we were under
yeah,
18, and like after midnight they're like, yeah, you have to stay in here and you can't leave.
yeah.
And it was just like really
It
shitty.
was just bizarre.
It
Just
was really bizarre.
bizarre.
Yeah, it was weird.
Yeah.
It was really weird.
I mean, we were so relieved when we were able to fly into Cincinnati and just come
Yeah,
back. And then we
just be
lost our
home.
luggage. We purportedly lost our luggage.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
then we had
right.
to come pick it up later.
Yeah, yeah.
Seems to
So
seems to be the
it
case every time
was,
I fly.
yeah. So that was, yeah. I mean, that sums up the trip pretty well. We didn't necessarily get into a lot of the different places we traveled, but I guess the cultural aspect of it is it's also really cool to talk about,
I
right?
think for me the just like it's the little like culture things that you don't think about that I really end up taking away. Like the touristy sites, like quite honestly, are pretty forgettable. And I feel like that's touristy places pretty much anywhere, and that's usually not the highlight of the trip. And if it is, I don't think you're very good at traveling. Um, I think my favorite touristy place was Temple of Heaven. I don't know if I mentioned that, but I like that because I'm kind of into philosophy and stuff. And um, I actually there was less people that day. I don't know why. I don't remember why there was less people when we went to Temple of Heaven that day. Um, and I just thought it was a really cool, very kind of spiritual place, and I kind of felt that kind of like spiritual vibe going on there. So if you go to Beijing, I recommend Temple of Heaven as the main touristy spot to visit.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's the small stuff that really is the takeaway. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're not gonna stop in Beijing or Hong Kong or any one place. Or Australia, matter of fact.
Yeah.
You know, we're gonna keep trying explore different places and go to crazier and crazier places. Right.
Yeah. We have
Yeah.
hopefully a couple more decades to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, so I guess this summarizes our today's podcast pretty well, right? We can stop here, and this is a pretty good place to
This is a
end.
good base. I think we started probably some conversations that if there's any questions that people have, more specific
Yeah,
questions on cultural stuff like this, we're all ears, you know.
yeah. Comment down below. Yeah,
Yeah,
really
comment
easy
down
to
below.
really easy to reach out. So yeah, thank you guys for listening to our podcast today, and like, share, and subscribe, and then be sure to turn on the notification or whatever, because we're posting a new podcast every single week. And we're thinking maybe it's obviously with the time difference, it's probably going to be around Friday-ish for everyone. So something that you can look forward to every weekend, right? When you go into your weekend. So thank you guys for watching, and cheers, mate.
Cheers.